Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. In tonight's headlines, USS Harry S Truman leaves the Red Sea following repeated blows coming from Ansarullah. Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the leader of Ansarullah, had a statement today in which he stated multiple important things that we will be talking about as well, including Ansarullah not seeing any American or Israeli ships in the Red Sea and in the region at all. The IDF commemorates the Holocaust in Gaza. Yes, you've heard that right. The next thing we'll be talking about is the Mossad head going to Doha. Israel is desperate to reach another temporary ceasefire. I'm going to tell you all about that and the prospect of that happening. The Palestinian resistance third massive action against the Israeli terror forces inside of the Gaza Strip, and a statement coming from Abu Ubaidah about this ambush that came from Aqsa Brigades. Problems with the Israeli Air Force pilots, with now many refusing to serve and directly clashing with the commander of the Israeli Air Force. And then we will also talk about the IDF Chief of Staff lashing out at members of the cabinet, more problems internally inside of Israel. Trump declaring that he's willing to meet with the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, or the president, Masoud Pezeshkian, and Iran having an agreement now with Russia worth $4 billion to develop oil fields simultaneously with their talks with the United States. But the first thing that we will be talking about is Ansarullah in Yemen. So, Ansarullah in Yemen, they made a declaration today, a couple of declarations, one by the movement and the other one by the leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. And we will begin with this report here. After being taken out of service due to Yemeni strikes, the U.S. aircraft carrier leaves the region. And here we're talking about USS Harry S Truman strike group. USS Harry S Truman has been deployed in the Red Sea for a while. It was the fourth U.S. aircraft carrier to come to the Red Sea and the region to try and combat Ansarullah. Why? To protect Israel. It's the fourth attempt, the fourth terror attempt. That's an attempt to terrorize a country for standing up for international law. I mean, Yemen, what are they doing exactly? Yemen are championing international law and freedom and democracy. That's what they're doing. Yemen is a country that imposing a totally legit blockade against a war criminal entity committing a genocide inside of the Gaza Strip. What does the US do? It has a coalition. Well, they initially hoped that 7 or 9 would come in this genocide coalition. They ended up with Britain only. Poor thing. And then they sent their aircraft carriers over there, and one after the other, strikes by Ansarullah, one after the other. Nothing's working. Now they're declaring, after they sent USS Carl Vinson to the region, and then again that got attacked on the first day that it arrived, they're declaring now that they are withdrawing USS Harry S Truman. You see, they do everything gradually, and I spoke about this at the time. The demand or the move by the United States to bring the strike group of USS Carl Vinson to the region, and the fact that it could be a cover-up so that they can withdraw USS Harry S Truman, and they, would look less shameful when they take out USS Harry S Truman. Now, clearly that was the case. They wanted to cover up. Why? Because clearly USS Harry S Truman has been hit, several times, severely, like Eisenhower and the ones before it too. And now they're going to have to bring Carl Vinson, which is already there, and the United States is declaring that they might replace USS Harry S Truman with another aircraft carrier. But that wasn't the only thing here. There's another country declaring that they are making a move. And that country, well, you guessed that right, the United Kingdom. HMS Prince of Wales leaves for an 8-month deployment. Why are they leaving for an 8-month deployment? They said it's beginning an 8-month mission to demonstrate the UK and Allied collective resolve and determination to maintain security and freedom from the Atlantic to the Pacific. But I think there's something wrong with that statement, to be honest with you. Beginning an 8-month mission to demonstrate UK and genocide cartel determination to maintain genocide and oppression from the Atlantic to the Pacific. I think that would have been a more accurate phrase right there. Now, they're not outright declaring that they're going to join USS Carl Vinson, and they're not saying that they're going to carry out strikes against Yemen. But I mean, what is it like? It's not a cruise ship, is it? It's an aircraft. It's basically, I'm not sure if it's a whole aircraft carrier. I think it has helicopters. I'm not sure if it has the same capabilities as USS Carl Vinson. USS Carl Vinson at the end of the day is very significant in terms of size, but nevertheless, they're sending it, and it's correlating with the presence of the United States in the area, carrying out strikes against Ansarullah in Yemen, and it's also coinciding with the United States declaring that they will be withdrawing USS Harry S Truman. Now, if the United Kingdom starts to participate with the same intensity, well, that could lead to big problems. They will be under attack from Ansarullah. Ansarullah are not going to allow the UK to start carrying out strikes without any repercussions. And they will face the same consequences as the US aircraft carriers do. However, again, the UK, it didn't declare that it's actually going to fight Ansarullah, but to maintain freedom and security. Freedom is, of course, they always have. I mean, can anyone argue that Britain was always maintaining peace and security and freedom all across the world? Now, this is coming simultaneously with statements coming from the leader of Ansarullah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. Abdul Malik al-Houthi made a very interesting statement today in which he said that this week, we carried out 7 operations in occupied Palestine, 9 in the sea, and there is absolutely no Israeli or American maritime activity. This is very important. So what, are they not even attempting to go through the Red Sea? Ansarullah in Yemen, they know when Israel tries to act or pretend like it's someone else. They told Israel from a year ago that we're noticing that some Israeli companies are using flags of other countries to try and avoid the attacks that are coming from Ansarullah. And then he said that we are aware of that and it won't pass. And indeed, they carried out strikes against ships that were proven to be connected with war criminal Israel. And Israel did not succeed in letting that go away. As a matter of fact, Ansarullah started to expand their operations to the Indian Ocean and even at one point to the Mediterranean alongside the Gulf of Aden and the Gulf itself and the Red Sea too. Now, he's saying there is no activity. This means that, well, the United States is failing. I mean, he made a couple of statements in this speech that he had today. And he said that there is no point in American aggression because it's not limiting capability and it's not affecting our will and it will not be preventing our operations. So it's basically ineffective. He's saying that the air defense capabilities of Ansarullah, they're bringing results. They're taking down MQ-9s, so approximately 22nd drone now. They said the 22nd drone they took down, and it's proving to be very effective. And he also said that the American administration failed in the support for the Israeli enemy. And also, he spoke about the Yemeni popular support to the actions of Ansarullah. And this is something very, very important, because the Yemeni people, they back the movements of Ansarullah heavily. Every single week, we see millions of people protesting in solidarity and asking the leadership also to take more action. And the only thing that's different in Yemen, apart from the intensity of the people's support, is the fact that you have an administration or people in power, leaders, who are actually listening to the people, therefore teaching the whole world a very big lesson in democracy. This glamorous term that so many countries like to use. Democracy, power to the people. The people in Yemen are calling to take action to stop the genocide against the innocent infants and children of Gaza, and their leaders are indeed taking action. And guess what? This action is perfectly aligned with international law. Absolutely in line with international law. Those who are going against international law are Israel and everyone who supports it. The United States, the United Kingdom, any other country participating to save Israel, a country which has been blamed directly by the ICJ that it's committing a genocide, with a wanted war criminal leading the country. So, the actions are clearly there. Israel is taking a step back in its actions and activities in the Red Sea. I mean, at least when it comes to the transportation. The United States, despite them carrying out massacres against civilians in Yemen to try and deter Ansarullah from their attacks, similar to what Israel is doing inside of the Gaza Strip, massacres against the people to try and deter the Palestinian resistance from continuing. Yet it's failing. It's failing both in Gaza, and it's also failing in Yemen as well. Now, moving on to the next point that I wanted to talk to you about. In the past couple of days, we spoke about the ambushes that the Palestinian resistance has been carrying out in the Gaza Strip, in particular in North Gaza. Now we have another ambush in South Gaza and also in North Gaza again. One of them in the south in Rafah and another one in the north. In the north this time, they had an ambush, and they said we were able to snipe 4 soldiers and officers from the occupation army in northern Gaza. Yesterday, I gave you a little bit of a military analysis to the actions of the Palestinian resistance in North Gaza, in particular in the buffer zone. And in that analysis, I described how this is considered to be an attack behind enemy lines, because the buffer zone is an area that Israel considers to be very safe, very protected. And the fact that the resistance is popping up in those areas more than once is a massive breach and a huge failure for the Israeli terror army. As a matter of fact, the attacks that happened in Beit Hanun, near Beit Hanun in the northern part of Gaza, in the buffer zone, as in on the borders with Israel, an area that Israel considers to be a buffer zone, where it has less security, less secure vehicles, people feeling naturally more at liberty to be less protected, like most armies in the world, really. 2 ambushes in the same place. In the same place. How? How can Israel get attacked twice in the same location that it considers to be a buffer zone? Well, you have a huge failure from Israel to secure the area. You have massive lack of intelligence and information about the network of tunnels coming from the Palestinian resistance. And there's another huge failure in finding the actual tunnel or tunnel opening that the Palestinian resistance fighters came out from in that area for them to use it again. Or if Israel did find that opening, although they didn't confirm that, by the way, clearly the Palestinian resistance had another opening very nearby, very close by. And then again, that's another massive failure. Where's all the technology? Where's all the sensors? Where's all of the we're going to control and everything? You see, Israel on the ground, they have the capacity to go and occupy parts of Gaza, but they cannot remain there. They cannot be established there. They can go and pass destruction or destroy everything. They can pass a few tanks and whatever to central Gaza or Rafah or whatever, but they're getting attacked on their borders. And there's hardly any difference between those attacks that are being conducted by the Palestinian resistance on those borders and any attacks being conducted inside 1948 occupied territories. This is a significant development, and these are significant actions being taken by the Palestinian resistance with very, very strong messages. 1.5 years of full-blown genocide with crimes that Satan himself is crying about. Satan himself is probably wailing, crying about what Israel is doing in Gaza. Yet the Palestinian resistance is popping up and doing all of this in these areas that Israel is considering to be secure areas. They're calling them a security line, a buffer zone, a security parameter. And the resistance is popping up from under the ground and shooting them and going back and disappearing, by the way. You see, Israel's not killing the fighters or even targeting them. Instead, they're going and butchering children. They're going to butcher children. Then we had another statement coming from Abu Ubaidah. Abu Ubaidah, the spokesperson of Aqsa Brigades, he came up with a statement to highlight the approach of the Palestinian resistance now, and what are they like exactly? Like, what are they feeling or whatever? And he said the following: our mujahideen, or fighters or strugglers in the fighting contract, pledged to remain steadfast until victory or martyrdom. He said that they are still fighting heroic battles, carrying out well-planned ambushes, and lying in wait for enemy forces to inflict certain massacres on them at that place, time, and method of their choosing. He continued to say that the heroism of our fighters on the ground from Beit Hanun to Rafah is a source of pride, military miracle, and an example for all the nation's youth and forces. Now, they are proving that on the ground. They are proving what they're saying on the ground. These people are still fighting from the north to the south, and they are not taking a step back. And clearly, they have pledged that either they will be martyred or they will eventually win. Now, Israel is aimlessly trying to portray that they're having these advances inside of the Gaza Strip, despite the fact that, every day you're coming out with more and more information to debunk that from the ground, like the information's been there from day one. But really and truly, it's not only that they're struggling heavily inside of the Gaza Strip, they're struggling heavily internally, politically, and with their security establishment. And how are they struggling? Well, there were a couple of reports. One of them was in the Israeli newspaper Ma'arif's website, saying this: in the midst of the cabinet, Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir lost patience about the debate that he had between ministers inside of the cabinet. Now, he's had so many back and forth arguments with Smotrich and with Ben Gvir, and this time he's having that again. They're having ridiculous demands. They are asking Zamir one of the ministers in this report said, why is the campaign in Gaza faltering? And he said, you wouldn't say that. There's a real war in Gaza. He started to shout at him. And stop describing it in that way. And they're telling him, well, we need to go and wipe everyone off, basically. Go for a full-out war. Occupy the Gaza Strip. And the man, again, lost his patience at them. So these people are having arguments day after day. And this is also being published in the Israeli media now. Okay. It didn't stop there. It's expanding again. Where now? Again, in the Air Force, in the Israeli Air Force. So this report in Ynet in Israel saying that growing tensions between the Southern Command and the Air Force. In the past 2 months, question marks have been growing in the IDF regarding the Air Force discomfort with the command leading the campaign in Gaza. The reason? The high rate of Palestinian deaths not involved in the bombings and the failure to investigate the causes. Recently, Air Force Commander Tomer Bar personally approved every attack. Nadav Eyal's full column today in Yediot Ahronot. They continued the article. And what are they saying here? Well, they're saying in this report that the Israeli pilots are now asking what targets are we being asked to hit inside of the Gaza Strip, and the command is giving them these targets. In those targets, they clearly state that there might be civilian deaths. However, the rate that they're talking about, their commanders, does not reflect what's happening on the ground, which led to the Israeli pilots going to social media and go to watch the news after they carry out the strikes. Now, several of them started to see, well, massacres, bodies being scattered everywhere, body parts, children being ripped to pieces in half, like we saw yesterday. And they were like, this is not what I signed for. Why are you letting me kill children, right? Now, there have been similar comments from some pilots that were reported before. And when we talk about what's being reported, that's the tip of the iceberg. And these people, of course, there's a notion, you're going to fight for the Israeli army. You're in the Israeli Air Force. You should be resisting to fight from day one, to operate for a genocidal entity confirmed to have killed and slaughtered thousands of children way before the 7th of October. However, some will say, oh, in Israel, there was misled, they didn't know, whatever. Now it's reaching the headlines. And if it's reaching the headlines in Israel, that means there's something much bigger than that. And again, it's causing a big problem for the Israeli army. It's coming simultaneously with an increase in the numbers of Israelis signing the petitions to refuse to serve in this war, calling for an immediate ceasefire, and calling this whole campaign a Netanyahu-based campaign for Netanyahu's own personal and political interests, and it's not for the actual benefit of the state of Israel, nor is it beneficial for the Israeli prisoners of war, who they, of course, refer to as the hostages. So, more problems happening on that front inside the state of Israel. Now, you might think, how can there be so many problems and Israel is continuing down this genocide? How are there so many problems and they're still able to carry out strikes? Well, of course, there are several answers to that. Number one is the fact that the evidence on the ground is showing that they're not having a campaign against the resistance, but only targeting the civilians. The Israeli defense minister said that we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza so that we can take political positions from Hamas, to apply pressure on Hamas. So they're outright declaring that they're committing a genocide and starving the population as a political tool, basically admitting to be mass terrorists, big terrorists. And the attacks that are happening are primarily the Air Force. Now they're having problems with the Air Force. And Who said that Israel isn't looking for a ceasefire? No, 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 no. Israel is looking for a ceasefire, but they're looking for a ceasefire on their own terms. Now, the Israeli head of the Mossad is back in the picture all of a sudden. We thought Ron Dermer was leading the delegation. Benjamin Netanyahu put the head of the Mossad, the head of the Shabak, and the representative of the army on the side, and he appointed Ron Dermer to go and lead the negotiations because Ron Dermer is a poodle of Benjamin Netanyahu who does as he is told, like this imbecile of a defense minister or genocide minister, Israel Katz. Now, the head of the Mossad is back. Why? What happened? What happened exactly? Well, clearly the man whose job was to delay and play with the timeline of Benjamin Netanyahu and make it impossible to reach an agreement, Ron Dermer, he's not required at the moment because Israel is looking for a ceasefire. And Ron Dermer has been heavily criticized by the families of the prisoners of war, saying that after they met him, they felt depressed and depleted completely. The man came up with no proper propositions, and he only came up with vague statements saying 3 to 6 months and maybe they won't return and. So now the head of the Mossad is back. The head of the Mossad is back and he's going to Qatar. And they're saying he's trying to come back with a deal. But what deal? You see, that's the thing. Number one, the fact that he's going back means, and this is an analysis, the fact that he's going back means that Israel is more serious about reaching a ceasefire. That's number one. Why? Because under him, and he was a man who wanted a ceasefire before Benjamin Netanyahu, under him they also went through the previous ceasefire or the latest ceasefire. And Netanyahu had many problems with the head of the Mossad before too. At one point, he prevented him from going to visit Qatar. Now that they clearly are interested, he's sending the head of the Mossad to talk. He probably has a couple of options on the table. There are no confirmations about the power that he's been given, the mandate that he's been given to close a deal. But he would typically have multiple options on the table. But what is this deal that Israel is looking for? Israel is looking for another temporary ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu is serious about having another temporary ceasefire. Why? Because they are struggling. Because their death toll is rising. Because the Palestinian resistance is shocking them. And because their internal situation is diabolical. It's chaos, it's havoc internally, and they need a break up until they get their stuff together again to continue and commit a genocide. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu wants. Why? Because Benjamin Netanyahu is not looking to end the war, but he wants a ceasefire. Him wanting a ceasefire doesn't mean that he wants to end the war. So we understand that Israel is now more serious about having another temporary ceasefire because of the horrendous situation that they are in, because of all of the chaos, the army's capability, people withdrawing from Gaza, them having to release soldiers that they were sending to Gaza untrained following pressure from their families, more being killed by endless ambushes coming from the Palestinian resistance behind the enemy lines, internal conflicts between the political and military echelons inside of the state of Israel, and political problems and pressure coming from the prisoners of war families and the majority of the country opposing Benjamin Netanyahu's approach towards the war, and the list goes on. Economy, whatever. So the list is very long. Now, where does that lead us to? Where is this going to lead to? Well, there's a notion here. There's something very important. Number one, some believe that the Palestinian resistance made a mistake by going into a ceasefire agreement with Israel that was split into multiple stages. However, the Palestinian resistance declared multiple times that it's showing a big level of leniency to, of course, end the genocide and reach a ceasefire, but not at any cost. At the cost of, well, they need to end the war. They need to withdraw. We need to rebuild Gaza. And Israel must declare that they're going to end the war. Okay. Israel, they went into this multi-phase agreement, supposedly having, I don't know if they can call them guarantees or not. Israel broke the ceasefire, the United States backed them, and the genocide continued. Now, the tone, at least from some officials from Hamas, is as follows: no more ceasefires with phases, all or nothing. We went through 1.5 years of full-blown genocide. We have over 50,000 martyrs. We are still fighting, and we will either continue to fight or we reach an agreement. Or we reach an agreement that will end the war once and for all at once. Of course, it could be spread throughout weeks, unless Israel, that is willing to allow all of this process to go all at once. But usually, even if you talk about a ceasefire, you will have days or at least weeks during which the ceasefire is going to be implemented, but no longer like phase 1 and then pause and then phase 2 and then pause. This is at least when it comes to the Palestinian resistance. Therefore, there is reason to believe that the Palestinian side, led by Hamas as the leading negotiators on behalf of all of the Palestinian resistance movements fighting inside of the Gaza Strip, the ones, I mean, you know, when we talk about the resistance movements and the political parties in the Gaza Strip, those who are really there, the relevant ones, not like the West Bank Authority, a Palestinian president sitting there getting orders from his masters and starting to blame the Palestinians of Gaza for their own genocide and giving Israel excuses and whitewashing Israeli crimes. No, the ones that are relevant, God, they are being led, of course, by Hamas to negotiate. And Hamas are saying now, at least in the words of some of their officials, of course, they're saying that we still have leniency, we're still open to suggestions and ideas, but this time we're looking for an all-out ceasefire. It's not going to happen again. They learned from the previous temporary ceasefire, and then they said we're not going into another temporary ceasefire. It took a year to reach another ceasefire. So therefore, that shows seriousness from Hamas not to repeat the same mistakes. Now, clearly there are statements. Will they fall into the trap or another trap worded differently? We don't know. There was indeed a ceasefire. A lot of aid was going inside of the Gaza Strip. There were breaches from the state of Israel, typically. And then Israel, of course, broke the ceasefire. But there's a very big likelihood that this won't succeed. However, what's for sure is that Israel is looking for a ceasefire. Israel is looking for a ceasefire, and that ceasefire is being negotiated in the with the mediators in Doha now. Moving on to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Donald Trump is saying, I'm open to meeting Iran's supreme leader or president. What happened, Mr. Trump? You were threatening them. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot this, that. It's your fault that the Houthis are shooting. Either reach a deal or all hell will break loose. What happened now? Well, Donald Trump, typical, you know, back and forth, 180s all of a sudden, and also trying to put up a show with Iran, also trying to appeal to Iran during these negotiations. Clearly, Donald Trump is showing signs that he is indeed interested in reaching a deal with Iran, despite all of the opposing talks. But it's also coming at a very interesting stage. The United States is talking to Iran about the nuclear project. They're saying that at one point they advised Iran, let's move all of the nuclear project outside. Any nuclear things you have, let's take them to another country, and you need to confirm that you're never going to have nuclear weapons. Of course, forget about what you think, the audacity of the US carrying out over 6,000 warheads to destroy the Earth and the Moon and the current solar system, telling Iran that doesn't have anything, oh, you can't have nuclear weapons, and not saying a word about Israel. I mean, and we won't get into that now. But it's coming with the rise of the BRICS. It's coming with the rise of the BRICS, and Iran is very known to be the biggest oil exporter to China. As a matter of fact, the Iranian president said before that Iran's biggest international partner is China. But now, guess what? This is increasing with the oil and with the finances to Russia. Iran signs 4 oil field development contracts with Russia worth $4 billion. A $4 billion investment coming from Russia to Iran. This is something very significant. This is coming amidst talks about the United States imposing more sanctions, them saying that we applied more pressure on certain figures in Iran who trade oil, and them saying that we will apply more sanctions if we don't get a deal, and the list goes on. Now they're signing a deal with Russia, and guess what? The United States can't do anything about that. And by the way, with the rise of the BRICS, the United States could do less and less with their so-called sanctions. The whole BRICS is a way of avoiding all of these sanctions between these group of countries. And even with the BRICS, well, Iran is still exporting its oil to European countries and to Shell and to European and American companies too. But changing names, changing people, changing ships, changing flags, they get there too. And Trump was saying that, he's trying to have a crackdown on these other ways that Iran is, changing its ways to kind of reach deals to do with oil. But again, that's not happening. They're signing a deal now with Russia worth $4 billion simultaneously with Trump's statement that I actually want to meet Khamenei. I want to meet Khamenei, and I also would like to meet the president, one or the other. Now, moving on to the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about, ladies and gentlemen. The IDF, here you go. I'm not going to speak much. Here you go. Can you read the title? IDF soldiers mark Holocaust Remembrance Day in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. Cognitive dissonance at its finest. I mean, what is this? These people are going to butcher and slaughter children day after day. They are conducting the worst genocide and infanticide and urbanicide of the 21st century. Landing more bombs on a concentration camp. On a concentration camp called Gaza. The equivalent of five times the equivalent of the bombs that landed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and those were nuclear. Over 100,000 tons of TNT on infants, on children being butchered every single day, and they are commemorating the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. Wow, speechless. Are they serious? It's a very important one. Are these people serious, or what are they exactly? What are they made out of? Are they delusional? Are they real people? Do they have a brain, or do they have something else in their head? Do they have like packs of straws? What do they have there? Do they have hearts, or do they have other things? I mean, it's becoming very difficult to understand. But yes, that is a headline in 2025. The Genocide Army is commemorating the Holocaust in the same place that it's conducting the 21st century Holocaust. I mean, that's only in relation, by the way, to what they're doing and to their actions. But if you want to talk about commemorating the Holocaust, commemorating what exactly? Your grandfathers collaborated with the Nazis with the Avara Agreement. Hitler and the Zionists played hand in hand to fool the Jewish people. Hitler had a problem with the Jews. So did many parts of Europe. Zionism and Nazism collaborated to make it work. The final solution to the Jewish question. The biggest act of deception against the Jewish people in modern history. But these people, they don't realize that. They are living in that bubble. I mean, the Israeli population, by the way, and you need to understand that very well, is the most brainwashed population on earth, because they've been fed this victimhood and this arrogance and this racism from day one. Oh, we were killed, we were slaughtered, therefore we need to kill and slaughter Palestinians. And they killed us and they want to kill us and they want to kill everyone. Dude, before Zionism, Jews were in Palestine. Return to the homeland. Who prevented you from returning to the homeland? What are we, in the Roman times? Yeah, you had problems 2,000 years ago. Apart from that, Jews were in Palestine. Under the Ottoman Empire, under the previous empires, they were protected. Previously, under Muslim rule, normal. What's the problem? Can't you see that this is a European colonial attempt? Slash test, slash thick ideology and joke. But that's what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. They were actually marking and commemorating the Holocaust inside of the Gaza Strip, the same place that they are committing a genocide in. And these were the main things that I wanted to share with you, everyone. Again, thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight, and I got you some interesting or new information for you. Thanks again for everyone who participated in chat and everyone who sent supers as well. For those of you who don't watch the whole live streams, I will also have clips for you separate with each of the subjects too. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your evening, day or night, depending on where you are. Enjoy the rest of your weekend too. And I will see you soon in the next show. Stay blessed, everyone. Peace. Salam.